Canelo stands are gonna flag this video, which just want to let you know. I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys. Um, I'm gonna win my appeal because I'm not saying nothing that's violating the YouTube content creator policy. So I don't know why you keep flagging my videos. You know, I know there's any video I do about Canelo or the big fish, they fans flag them, and I always win my appeal. But I just want to talk about the Canelo sympathy tour that's going on with him. Woe is me. It's funny, man, when you think about this. Like I said before, you always see the double standard. You see the complexion protection. You see the anything but the brother mentality. Now, at the end of the day, Terrence Crawford, until Errol Spence sees him and beats Terrence Crawford, is number one in my book. And that's just the bottom line. And I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm not finna go back and forth with people about it. Terrence Crawford is number one until further notice. And I meant every word when I said that Canelo slipped out the pound for pound list by losing to a unranked fighter. But at the end of the day, let's just tell some truth about this. I think we were drinking a little too much Canelo Kool-Aid. I think we were fooled by the fact that they needed somebody to replace Floyd Mayweather, and they wanted it to be anybody but a brother. And I'm just keeping it 100. When Floyd retired, Andre Ward was the guy, and then Andre Ward basically retired right after Floyd Mayweather. So they needed a void. They didn't want, they had Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather, two black fighters, number one and number two. Andre Ward, he went through Sergey Kovalov twice to become number one pound per pound. And then Andre Ward, he left the sport and hasn't looked back. So then all of a sudden you had Canelo, or you had Lomachenko, or you had Chocolatito, which I never thought Roman Gonzalez was pound for pound the best fighter on the planet. I thought that was atrocious. I thought it was offensive, and I thought it was a joke. So after Roman Gonzalez got knocked off, then they turned their sights on Vasily Lomachenko, which, by the way, Vasily Lomachenko was never number one pound per pound. It was no way, shape, or form a guy who lost his second career professional bout to a dude that had double-digit losses could have been on anyone's pound per pound list. But it was just the anybody but the brother. Then all of a sudden, it was back and forth. Then Terrence Crawford started to climb up the ladder. Then Errol Spence. And a lot of dust got settled into me. I thought when it was all said and done, it was out of Canelo, Terrence Crawford, and Errol Spence for number one. But due to the fact that Canelo has an asterisk attached to him, it was just hard for me to make Canelo the consensus number one pound per pound fighter. And I don't care how often he fought, but look who he was fighting. I just got through looking at Canelo's, Wikipedia, and his boxing record is on there. And here's the thing. Canelo Alvarez went Eastern European hunting, and it backfired on him because Canelo wasn't really trying to fight no brothers. That came out of Terrence Crawford's mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, he didn't seem interested in fighting Errol Spence. And that was a fight he would have been a huge favorite in, more than likely. And he still didn't seem interested. Then he doesn't want to fight other Mexican fighters. You have David Benavidez waiting for him. And I'm going to tell you right now, I said last year, I said it would have been in Canelo's best interest to try to get David Benavidez now, because I can tell you right now, if Canelo wait 2 or 3 years down the road to fight David Benavidez, he's going to get beaten very badly. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I would favor David Benavidez probably to beat Canelo right now if they was to set up a fight. The Canelo blueprint was exposed a long time ago. It was. Oh, I'm gonna speak on the Wilder thing. I'm gonna get to that later. I'm definitely gonna speak on the Wilder thing. I'm definitely going to speak on that. Oh, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that, but I gotta cook. I gotta cook Canelo in his stance. If anybody that want to challenge me what I'm saying about Canelo, and this came out of his own trainer's mouth. Eddie Reynoso said out of his own mouth he doesn't like his fighters to fight black fighters. So how is this a race thing when Eddie Reynoso said out of his own mouth, he says, I don't like African American fighters. Not in a racial way, he don't like them for his fighters. He don't like that style of fighting. Why you think Canelo ain't fought Charlo? And the funny thing is Canelo would be a favorite, but they don't like those styles for him. Canelo went Eastern European hunting or white boy hunting, and it backfired on him. This time he got the Eastern European that was ready, and he fought him in his prime. So once again, these are things that came out of Canelo's mouth and his trainer's mouth. Canelo said he didn't want to fight any Mexican fighters. And if you look at Canelo's plans, there was talk of him fighting Triple G in a third fight that nobody cared about, or possibly John Ryder, or possibly going up or fighting the winner of Arthur Beterbiev, Joe Smith Jr. Did he say any black fighters are in his plans? He's refused to fight Demetrius Andrade. Refused to fight him. He said he wasn't a good fighter. He said he was trash. He's saying he accused them of wanting a payday, and they ain't really been getting no paydays because Dimitri Bivol only got paid $2 million for that fight. And that's why he said that Canelo would have to pay him more money. And I'm going to tell you right now, they saying Canelo can't get over the loss. And then for Canelo to sit up there and say that he thought he won that fight. And for people to sit up there and try to insinuate that that fight was close and say that Canelo dared to be great. Canelo didn't dare to be great. Canelo was cherry picking and it went wrong. Anybody that want to challenge me, look at Canelo's box rec. Look at his last 11 fights. One black fighter. And he barely beat Daniel Jacobs. Had Daniel Jacobs got started earlier in the fight, who knows? Daniel Jacobs could have beat Canelo. Canelo don't want to fight no brothers, and he don't want to fight other Mexican fighters. And you would think he would be game to fight another Mexican fighter. Nobody cared about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. We all knew Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. wasn't that good of a fighter. Thanks, Big E. Appreciate that, man. I always, you know what I'm saying? I love coming to LA. I was just out there. So I was just, well, I was close, Costa Mesa. Well, I was in LA. I went to the 24-hour fitness over there by, off of, Slauson. Worked out over there, but appreciate the love, man. I got a lot of love for LA. So, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got nothing bad to say about LA. So, you know what I'm saying? For real. So, you know, I got comrades that's on both sides, the red and the blue, or don't do it at all. So I'll mess with everybody. But yeah, man, this needed to be said, man. And it's just time to have these conversations about Canelo. Like I said, I'm not regular media. I'm not finna sit up here and go on this sympathy tour for Canelo. He did not dare to be great. He did not dare to be great. That's real talk. He did not dare to be great. He went on the white boy Eastern European tour. There was no brothers in his plans. Remember, he was talking about Uslik, which, by the way, Uslik would have destroyed Canelo. And the only one that's coming clean about it is Oscar De La Hoya. And Oscar De La Hoya basically said he don't recommend Canelo fight him again. And I'm telling you now, if he fights Bivol again, it's going to be even worse. And Andre Rozier, former trainer of Daniel Jacobs, had the best advice. Don't fight that dude again. Don't let your pride get in the way. Because you're going to get chocolate Tito'd. And then it's really going to be bad for you. But that's always been the plan. I've never, I have to admit this. I think Canelo is a good fighter. I think he's a good fighter, but the way people were elevating him, like this dude was just unstoppable, and they was talking about they don't see him losing. I was saying to myself, well, if he doesn't lose, it's because he's not like taking certain fights. And I'm not worried about the racial slurs that's been directed towards me by angry, upset, butthurt Mexicans. That don't bother me at all because I'm still gonna say what I need to say. And like I said, it's so funny. It is so funny that everybody was attacking Deontay Wilder behind the Tyson Fury stuff, saying he need to take his loss like a man and he need to be quiet and he need to give props. Well, you know what? Deontay Wilder, after the third fight, he gave the props to Tyson Fury. I still believe what I believe about Tyson Fury, but that's neither here or there. It's over with, whatever. But here is Canelo. Here is Canelo sitting up making every excuse in the book. Oh, I thought I won the fight. Nobody with common sense think you won that fight. You would be generous. You would be generous to say that Canelo won more than 3 rounds. And it's a question of whether Canelo won 3. I was generous enough to give Canelo 3 rounds. And that's only because Bivol, you know what I'm saying, took his took his foot off the gas. I've been watching boxing for years. I saw Canelo's demeanor. I saw his corner. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have a plan B. Canelo don't know how to use a jab. He doesn't like to use a jab. He likes to sit, set his punches, and try to hit you with power shots, power hook, lead left, or uppercut. And if you can neutralize that and keep Canelo at the end of your jab, you could have success with Canelo. All Bivol was doing was keeping Canelo at the end of his jab. And then when he got in range, hit Canelo with a couple of combinations, jump back out, and then rotate around him and then come back in. Canelo lost that fight every way, shape, or form. He couldn't outbox Bivol. He couldn't outmuscle Bivol. And like I said, when Bivol had Canelo against the rope, Bivol didn't want to smother his shots. And also he didn't want to punch himself out and put Canelo in a position to get back in that fight. Bivol really could have did a number on Canelo. And to be honest with you, based off the fact Canelo seems to be visibly shaken based off his loss. Now Canelo is saying, "Oh, I don't want to. I don't think I'm gonna fight at 175. You shouldn't." And I was laughing at the fact that you actually had people that actually thought that he could beat Artur Beterbiev. Artur Beterbiev would have took Canelo's head off. Artur Beterbiev is one of the best second half fighters in the game. He's a slow starter. Canelo would have had 4 rounds to make something happen with Beterbiev. Because if he wouldn't have, Beterbiev would have started picking him apart. And Beterbiev can box better than what people give him credit for. You know, like I said, nobody wants to hear truth. And then you got certain people in the media, you got certain boxers demanded that we give Canelo respect. I ain't got to give Canelo nothing. And saying we kicking him while he's down. How are we kicking him while he's down? It's our job as media, as boxing analysts. I cover boxing. I go to boxing events. I cover. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to critique and give my opinion. This is just Canelo's turn. So let me get this straight. We only supposed to talk about Canelo when he's winning fights. So we ain't supposed to talk about how he lost the fight and what he did to lose the fight, or what he didn't do, or what he should do. So I get it. Oh, I get it. Like I said, Canelo was liking the smell of his own, you know what. Like I said, he got too used to fighting those Eastern European fighters that wasn't gonna put up a fight. But see, and the funny thing is, Bivol thought it was laughable that people thought that Canelo could beat him. And I'll give him credit, he's been humble about it, but he thought it was laughable that people thought that he could beat him. And I understand what Bivol's saying. You think this dude can beat me? All you got to do is watch that fight. You can watch that full fight. It's on YouTube. Watch Canelo's demeanor. That will tell you all you needed to know about him. He wasn't ready. He looked confused. He looked at times that he was ready to to quit in that fight, but he knew if he would have quit in that fight, that would have been it for him. It wasn't enough. He was getting whooped, but he wasn't getting whooped enough to where the corner should throw in the towel. But he got outboxed. And as you can see, Bivol then got in Canelo's head. And I highly recommend that Canelo don't fight Bivol again, because it's gonna be worse. Bivol's gonna stop him if they fight again. And Bivol may go down to 168 and still whoop Canelo. So I think Canelo should stay away from Bivol. But if he want to let his pride get in the way, that's on him. One of the things was I watched with Roy Jones Jr. The mistake he made when he beat Antonio Tarver by narrow margin. Roy should have left it alone. He should have left it alone. But his pride got in the way. He signed for a rematch, and he ended up getting knocked out. Okay? And that's just real talk. Deontay Wilder, he wanted to challenge himself. In retrospective, I wish he would have just moved on from the Tyson Fury thing, because he would still be undefeated. But at the end of the day, I give Deontay Wilder credit for his heart and him having a warrior mentality, saying, hey, I want to do this again. I feel that I got unfinished business. And then unfortunately, it didn't. And in the next two fights, it didn't go his way. But I still consider Wilder a warrior. But he don't get credit for that. He don't get credit for that. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to, like, sometimes you should just be like, you know what, forget it. Just forget it. And I'm not saying duck nobody, but at the same time, sometimes just move on. Canelo can't beat Bivol. Not on the up and up. Yeah, and that's the problem with Roy. Roy, like I said, sometimes just leave it alone. Leave it alone. It wasn't no reason for him to fight Tarver again. And I thought about it when I saw that fight. I said, I don't think Roy should fight Tarver again. I think he should just leave it alone. But I understand the warrior mentality. And Roy don't get credit for that. He don't get credit for that. And neither do Wilder. You know, he went out on his shield the third fight with Tyson Fury. But I'm just thinking, if he just would have walked away from the situation. He chose the warrior. He chose to be a warrior, which he don't get no credit for, over money. When most fighters, all they care about is money. Well, some of them do. And then once again, this says a lot about Canelo's character. Just like Aki said, Canelo say everybody want a payday, but like I said, he ain't paying nobody. But Canelo turned down $100 million for a package that included Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez. And then another package that included either Benavidez or Spence. So that just goes to show you that Canelo have somewhat of a phobia about fighting black fighters. Because I think that beating that he took via Floyd Mayweather is still in his head. And now that Bivol did a number on him, who knows? Bivol did a number on him. And like I said, I commend fighters, but sometimes you should just walk away. And like I said, I'm not questioning. I'm not, and I don't want nobody trying to think that I'm saying that Deontay Wilder should have ran. I'm just saying, well, damn, he should get more credit. He could have just said, forget it. But he wanted to run it back. And like I said, keep in mind, Deontay Wilder pulled Tyson Fury out of nowhere land. Tyson Fury was said out of his own mouth. He said he was on the brink of possibly doing something to himself. He was into drugs and all that kind of stuff. He just had a lot of issues. Deontay Wilder revived his career. And here's the thing. He made a lot of money with Deontay Wilder. That's just real talk. Deontay Wilder revived his career. Because nobody cared about Tyson Fury. And as you can see, he really doesn't have a fan base in the States. Based off what the so-called pay-per-view numbers was for his fight with Dillian White. Nobody cares about Tyson Fury unless he's fighting Deontay Wilder, and that's fact. We just gotta keep it a buck. We just gotta keep it a buck. And that's the problem. We're not allowed to do what we're supposed to do. That's the problem. When if it ain't the promoters, it's the fighters trying to control what you say. You have the PR people trying to control what you say. And then if one person don't like what you say, they'll run to somebody that they are favorable with and try to complain to them about something that you said. So like I said, this thing is tough. But as far as the Canelo sympathy tour go, nah, man. No. Because if you would have won, you would have had everybody talking about how great you are and all this kind of stuff. I'm just keeping it 100. If you bet money on Canelo, you got played. And the only reason why I didn't favor Bivol to win that fight is because, well, based off the scoring. 7-5 in favor of Bivol. I'm waiting for anybody to tell me what 5 rounds you thought Canelo won in that fight. That's the only reason why. I didn't think Canelo was going to knock out Bivol. I just knew it would be one of them fights. It'll be close. Bivol would be, I thought it would end the way that it ended, except that Canelo would get the benefit of the doubt. I just thought something weird was going to happen in that fight. But Canelo, he couldn't hurt Bivol. He never once hurt Bivol in that fight. So there you have it. Just keeping it 100. But this needed to be said, man. Canelo fans, you can't bully me. You can't bully me. I'm going to say what need to be said. That's fact. Appreciate the time. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This your boy Town Biz, man. I'm out.